First of all, can I thank everybody who's here this afternoon. I think it's really, really important that you've turned up today. I think this demonstrates the overwhelming commitment of everybody, not just in Great Missenden, but right the way through the Chiltern Area of Outstanding Natural Beauty, right the way up the line to Birmingham, and I'm very certain, very soon, beyond Birmingham, right up to Manchester and Leeds, in opposing what is one of the worst value for money projects that probably any government since the war has actually come forward with. So thank you very much for being here this afternoon. Can I just tell you what I want to do? I want to update you because it seems like only yesterday, but it was November when we were here last time talking about the build-up to the public consultation which has now started. An awful lot has happened in the last year. Many of you were not here then, so pardon a little bit of history for those who were. The previous government, as you know, came out with what they called their command paper on HS2 just over a year ago. Immediately we recognised that it went right through the widest and most environmentally sensitive part of the area of outstanding natural beauty that is the Chilterns. The only way they can do that and justify that is if they can show it is in the overwhelming national interest and that every other option has been explored and rejected. And what has become very clear, and you'll hear this from our other speakers this afternoon, is that neither of those two prerequisites has actually been met. Very quickly after that command paper was published, the County Council in a full council motion debated and passed overwhelmingly a motion rejecting this particular routing. We were joined within 2 months by every single one of our district councils within Buckinghamshire, and the 5 councils that represent you in Buckinghamshire lined up completely unanimously in opposing the scheme. We spent a lot of time last year engaging with the government, particularly the DFT, to challenge the whole concept that they were coming up with and to understand their logic, because they'd had so many commitments to us for that dialogue and for that consultation. We met 4 times with Philip Hammond, who is the Secretary of State for Transport. I have to tell you, I found each and every one of those meetings very, very depressing. As someone who has worked very actively for this government, when we met, what we found was that when we talked about environmental issues, when we talked about the Chiltern Area of Outstanding Natural Beauty, words were used like, it's just fields. We were told that actually it's not exactly Constable country. I have to tell you, I think it's a lot better than Constable country. When we exposed all of the flaws in the business case, we were told we shouldn't nickel and dime the business case. When we got businessmen up and down the country to actually write protesting that this was a bad use of taxpayers' money, what did they say? They said they were climate change deniers. This is not the way a Secretary of State should seriously respond to really professional criticism of government proposals. And I find that very, very depressing. Rather than in any way becoming fatalistic, that has actually renewed our enthusiasm to fight this campaign, and we realise we have to reach out beyond the Department of Transport to a much wider audience across not just the Chilterns, right the way up to Birmingham and beyond, and indeed, as Cheryl has said, right across this country. What we have done is we have united now, not just across Buckinghamshire, but with every local authority right the way up to Birmingham. We have formed what we've called the 51M group. That 51M alliance is because we have calculated that for every single constituency in this country, including Scotland and Wales, and yes, still Scotland at the moment, that will cost the constituencies, taxpayers, £51 million for every single constituency. To us, that emphasises this is not a NIMBY discussion. This is about value for money and whether this is a good use of the money that comes from every taxpayer and every business in this country at a time of austerity when we are seeing hospitals, youth services, libraries and other services under a lot of fire financially, whether we could really invest £51 million for every constituency in this country. And that is an alliance we have formed. We started it with 13 local authorities. It's grown to 14 and now to 16. And Coventry has become the first Labour authority now to join the 51M alliance. And I think that's really great news that this is a cross-party campaign led by your local authorities fighting with you to stop this particular campaign. The next step, because we can't rest on our laurels there, is we need to reach beyond Birmingham. What the government is doing in this consultation is actually two things. They are consulting, first of all, on the routing between London and Birmingham. So if you want to argue whether the line should be left or right of a particular place, they'll consult on that. But they're also consulting, and this is the part they don't tell you, they're consulting on the whole strategy as far as Birmingham and Leeds. But they are not holding a single solitary public roadshow north of Birmingham. So what is happening is that any resident, any business who lives north of Birmingham to Manchester or to Leeds in what we call the Y, will be in complete and utter ignorance that this is their one and only opportunity to discuss, debate, engage, understand, and hopefully reject that strategy. And I think that is totally reprehensible and deceitful. It does not tell the people who will be affected that this is their only opportunity. And we have to wake them up and tell them to shout very loudly against this particular strategy. I won't duplicate what other colleagues on the platform are going to say, but we have 4 work streams. We are looking at the business case, and I know Hilary will expose many of the flaws in the business case. It is not a business case. It's been better described as a basket case. It is riddled with inconsistencies and flaws. The idea that, for example, a leisure traveller arriving 20 minutes earlier in Birmingham to visit their aunt is worth £6 billion to the national economy. Only if you indulge in the economics of the madhouse can you actually make this business case stand up. The whole forecasts are just, again, riddled with just fatalistic flaws. We've looked at the environmental case, and I really resent that whenever anyone argues on the environment against this particular project, they are labelled as NIMBYs. This is a nationally designated area of outstanding natural beauty, nationally designated. And it is a national duty we have to fight to protect that. And they have reneged. The Department of Transport has reneged on a firm commitment they made to us at a meeting to produce what is called a full environmental impact assessment prior to the public consultation. They promised us that because it would expose all of the environmental impacts. Instead, they produced what's called an appraisal of sustainability. Do not be fooled. That is not an environmental impact assessment. It is a much lower grade of assessment. It actually is a desk study. It's involved no field work, and it mainly focuses on development along the route rather than the impact upon the environment. They claim that 50% of the route has been changed. No, it hasn't. 50% of the routing has not been changed. What they've done is they've actually just dug the tunnel a few metres deeper, and they've said that's changing the routing. They describe the A413 as a major transport corridor. Now, I don't know about you, but I drive along that road twice a day. I don't think the A413 is a major transport corridor. I don't think it's equivalent to the M20 or the M2 down in Kent, which is what normally is described as a major transport corridor. On the issue of alternatives, we're doing a lot of work on that as well. And again, Hilary has been absolutely fantastic at exposing the fact that there are much cheaper alternatives to this scheme that can be built incrementally, that can be done along existing transport corridors, and which can yield virtually identical capacity increases to those proposed by the government. And the last of the 4 streams we're looking at is actually that issue of the national interest, whether we really are closing the north-south divide by this particular project. And what becomes very clear is this is absolutely untrue. And it's untrue even within the government's own published paper. What you find is that of the 30,000 new jobs they claim this scheme will actually produce, 73% of them will be where? Have a guess. London. And actually within London there'll be an Old Oak Common in a big retail mall. How is that closing the north-south divide? Well, actually what you're doing is you're going to be bypassing major towns in our Midlands and North, like Doncaster, Stoke, Leicester and other major cities, who will become completely bypassed by this scheme. This is fundamentally flawed thinking. The front end of these 4 strands will be communications, because we absolutely have to break out of a narrow line along the Chiltern line, quite frankly. We cannot simply be responding from this area, important as that is. We have to win the public debate across the whole country. It is really important that each and every one of you spread the word, get them to question why are they spending £51 million for every constituency in the country on a fatally flawed business case when we have potentially hospital closures and so much austerity currently within the country. It's a fatally flawed use of money. You must engage on the communications front. Secondly, on the legal side, our other front end is a legal challenge. I will not go into the details of that for obvious reasons. We do not want to warn the Department for Transport in any way about what might happen there. Go to the public consultation, engage there, do not get driven into a very quick response, which is what they try and railroad you into doing. They'll try and move you towards like a screen that they have within the setup, just so they can get you to do a very quick response after you've had a very glitzy roadshow. Make sure you come away, make sure you look at the answers that are being provided both by the councils and by people like the HS2 Action Alliance on how you can respond to this consultation. Make sure you get your remarks in, make sure you get friends and colleagues to do that as well. In conclusion, basically, we are fighting with you. We've raised over £1 million across those 16 local authorities, very controversially at a time of austerity, but we believe it's absolutely the right way to spend ratepayers' money. That's your money, my money, because this is a once-in-a-lifetime scheme. If we get this wrong, this is irreversible. We cannot turn the clock back. We cannot D out HS2. It will be there in perpetuity, and I don't believe our children or our grandchildren will ever forgive us if we fail. But I am very confident that collectively we can succeed. Thank you very much indeed.